Now, I remember when I first started out in the investment world, and I'd saved up a little bit of money, and I'd seen a lot of our clients making money out of stock picking and investment decisions. And I thought, hey, listen, I'm smart enough to perhaps join in on this caper. So I decided to do some research and figure out what I wanted to purchase, and started buying up different securities. Now, these securities were mostly speculative securities investments, so options and warrants, especially trying to, I guess, make money quickly. Now, I soon realized that I did not have the stomach for this type of game. That is, I felt the short-term investment losses very keenly. Is very stressful, watching my positions go up and down. I found it difficult to hold on, keep on holding investments. As soon as I got a gain, I wanted to sell. And soon realized that my overall risk aversion, or level of risk aversion, let's say, was reasonably low. Now, this did have to do with the fact that I was sitting in front of a screen for the whole day, and so I could constantly be checking on my positions. But overall, I realized that the stress of this type of activity was a bit too much for me. Now, in general, all investors are risk averse to some level, I would say. There are some that might be risk seeking, the more speculative traders, but still most investors will be risk averse. And when we look at our investment sciences and our theories, we definitely expect and assume that all investors are risk averse. That is, not that we avoid risk altogether, but that we prefer less risk over more risk. That if we could get the same outcome with two different investments, and one was a more risky way of getting there, one was a less risky way of getting there, we would take the less risky route, just in general. That's what we would consider a rational investment decision. And so we do expect this risk aversion, and we try to measure this risk aversion or risk as well. And generally we see it as volatility of outcomes. And so we use that to put together different modeling to understand how to make good investment decisions, how to build portfolios in particular. But what we've come to understand in the investment world is that this assumption of risk aversion, in particular, that this is a driving force of decision making, is of a rational investment decision maker, is not necessarily true all the time. In particular, we find that investors are more loss averse than they are risk averse. And this may sound, the two may sound pretty similar, but in particular, what we find is that we definitely want to avoid losses, whereas we don't necessarily want to avoid risk. And we make decisions to try to avoid losses at all time. And this can lead to decision making that sometimes is not the most economic, sometimes is not the most efficient, sometimes is what we might call irrational, even though obviously decisions that avoid losses seem to be rational, right? So the main example of this is, let's say you have an investment that has lost you money. Sometimes when we are making decisions based on a loss-making investment, something that's already lost us money, we start to act irrationally. In particular, we might start to seek risks. That is, we might look for investment or decisions that are more risky because we would prefer to take on risk with the chance of perhaps getting out of that loss. That is, recouping those losses. In practice, we see this happening all the time. Investors holding on to loss-making assets, investors selling gain-making assets maybe a bit too early in particular, or at least holding what has happened in the past, that is the movements of prices in the past, whether they be losses or gains, having that as an anchor to to our decision making. But we shouldn't be doing that as investors. The only thing we should be worried about when we're investing is the future. What does the future look like? Obviously, we utilize information about the past to understand what's going to happen in the future, but ultimately, we only make money on investments from what they do in the future. We can't get money from returns of the past. And so our decision making needs to have an eye on the future.
Now, eagle-eyed viewers may have spotted some familiar landmarks in this video, so to play the Where is Dr. Dan game, head over to my Substack to be the first to log your location guess. See you next time.